Hi, hello. I've been thinking about doing a State of ESO Elsweyr for a while now, but given that the upcoming patch notes for Update 23 Scalebreaker have been leaked in pretty much every single Discord I know, I thought I'd share them with you guys. These patch notes seem to be the real deal because the sets that were leaked in these patch notes weeks ago have been confirmed in the last ESO Live on Wednesday to be like indeed the dungeon sets. The upcoming dungeon sets, yes, and monster sets. So it does seem to be the real thing. Guess we'll see for certain on Monday, but I see no harm in sharing it with you this weekend when I have actually time to record. So without further ado, let's just jump into it. For the disclaimer, I won't read through them all because there's plenty of useless paragraphs there I just can't be asked going through. The full patch notes will be available in the description down below, and I will just comment on some of the best changes ZOS has delivered so far. Okay, so first things first. All AoE dots have had their damage nerfed by 33% and their cost increased by 30%. So that means everything like Elemental Blockade, Liquid Lightning, Endless Hail, Caltrops, every single AoE dot has been nerfed by 33%. Why not? I mean, I don't know anyone that was complaining about Caltrops or Elemental Blockade, but clearly ZOS thought it was necessary. Just on a quick side note before I go further, because every single one of these damage nerfs have to do with the fact that there is indeed a power creep in PvE, but what ZOS doesn't seem to realize is that the power creep in PvE is due to the new sets they introduced, like Reliquant for example, which cause players to do way more damage than before. But instead of nerfing these sets, they choose to nerf abilities that have been in this game since release and that nobody was complaining about, nobody that I know of anyways. But this is ZOS's call. Let's just continue. Speaking of PvE, another change that is personally I'm a fan of is Healing Springs. They made it so Healing Springs becomes a heal over time over 8 seconds, with its healing nerfed by 44%, but more importantly, they made it so Healing Springs can't stack anymore. You can only have one Healing Springs active on the ground, which I think it's a great idea. I myself didn't really like the fact that groups could heal and just stack Healing Springs. It always seemed really lore-breaking, and yeah, I'm glad this is a change now. I'm glad that groups won't be able to stack Healing Springs anymore, and I can't wait any trial group do Sunspire next patch if this goes live. And to continue with the PvE nerfs, we have the Healing Orbs nerf. Well, Mystic Orb as well, like any orb morph nerf. You can only have one orb active now, and their healing has been decreased by 13%. So that means you'll only be able to cast one healing orb at a time. Good luck restoring resources to your trial group now, or even healing them. Again, I don't know who complained about it. I don't know who thought that being able to cast multiple healing orbs at the same time was bad, but apparently it is, so it's been changed. And I can't wait to see all of the PVErs on Suicide Watch. This is way too funny, I'm sorry. So yeah, enjoy having your one stack of Healing Springs on the ground and one orb active at the same time, because this is what the community requested apparently. Another nerf that seems really absurd to me is the rapid maneuver. If you remember, like, rapid maneuvers have been nerfed before, but now they're reducing the duration of Major Expedition on both morphs to 8 seconds while keeping the Major Gallop up to 30 seconds, which means that if you're on horseback, you will still be able to ride at like 30% more speed for 30 seconds. But if you're, for example, on foot because your horse isn't leveled, or because you're collecting sky shards in PvE or doing quests or whatever, you will have to spend 7k stamina in order to cast Major Expedition for 8 seconds only. Again, I don't know why this change was needed. I mean, the only people that need Major Expedition for 30 seconds on Rapid Maneuver are mostly PVErs that just go through dungeons, like they just run through dungeons with Rapid Maneuvers and that's it. Because if this change was meant to address ball groups in PvP, it doesn't, because they spam Rapid Maneuvers, so they aren't affected by the change because they actually have dedicated players casting rapids, and that's their only job in the ball group. They just cast rapids. So what's the point of reducing the duration to 8 seconds? What's the point? It only serves to make players who are farming sky shards or just doing quests or running through dungeons, I mean delves, like not group dungeons, just single player delves, it just serves to make their experience worse. But it's a never change. Then, speaking of sets, they had the great idea to nerf sets like Ebon, which again, I don't think anyone was asking for it. But yes, Ebon is getting nerfed as well, so I don't know why. They also claimed they nerfed, well, I mean, they wrote at least that they nerfed the heavy armor sets that have been plaguing Cyrodiil for a while now, like Fury, 7th Legion, Veiled Heritance, I guess. I'm not actually sure if Veiled Heritance is in the patch notes. The format is a bit too complicated for me to find it again, but I know for sure Fury and 7th Legion are getting nerfed, except Fury isn't getting nerfed that much. You still can get 350 weapon damage from it, so I guess I'll still remain best in slot. Or at least personally, I don't see any reason not to go Fury next patch, because the nerf they did to it is really minor in comparison to anything else. So, I don't know. Ooh, among other sets that have been changed that nobody asked for, we have Phoenix, Eternal Warrior, and Immortal Yukida. The Self-Resurrect sets have always caused problems where they underperformed in most cases and overperformed in very specific circumstances. I think they mean the people that are cheesing dungeons, like getting the no-dev hard mode speedrun achievements by cheesing it with Phoenix and Eternal Yukida. I'm one of them. I personally got most of my no-dev speedrun HM achievements by cheesing it with Phoenix. So I feel a bit concerned, but they removed the self-resurrect mechanics on Phoenix, Eternal Warrior, Immortal Warrior, like all these sets, and they basically gave it so you have a 70k shield whenever you drop low health, but like it's just a shield, you're not going to get resurrected if you happen to fuck up a mechanic. So there's that. Just wanted to mention it because it seems a bit, I don't know, I mean it's kind of a nerf that comes out of nowhere, or a change, however you want to call it, but yeah, it's still there. Okay, now let's talk about class changes. So first of all, for DKs, they increased the Petrify cost from 3k to 4k. It does feel like a nerf because DK abilities already are way too expensive, so I'm not sure what's the point in increasing your only stun to like 4k max magic is, but it's us, so whatever. Then we have Sorcerer nerfs. I think the most tragic nerf this patch is that they're nuking Clanfear. I'm not sure who on earth complained about Clanfear. I'm not sure why they're doing this, or at least like they explained by saying that it would put it in line with Overflowing Altar and Dragon Blood or whatever, same kind of abilities, but they are actually nerfing Clanfear out of all things. Just nerfing Clanfear. That's I don't know. I don't even have any words to qualify this decision. They're fucking nerfing Clanfear, of all things. But yeah, so on top of nerfing Clanfear, they're nerfing Hardened Ward by 27% and increasing its cost to 4k max magicka. They're saying it's to put it in line with burst heals like Breath of Life, except they keep forgetting that Hardened Ward doesn't heal, so it can't be put on par with Breath of Life, because when your ward is down you still have the same amount of health. Like it doesn't heal. When you're low health, Hardened Ward won't save you, Breath of Life will. But anyways, they're nerfing it quite significantly. Obviously they're nerfing pets. They're nerfing the Twilight damage by 69% per hit, so good luck to any pet sorc out there that was actually using Twilight as a constant pressure in PvP, or any PvE sorc for that matter that was using Tormentor, because it's getting nuked as well, because why not? They're nerfing the Unstable Familiar as well, like the Volatile Familiar, whatever, you can read in the patch notes. They're nuking Harness Magicka as well. Instead of restoring on average 1.1k magicka per hit, it's going to now restore 150 magicka, so you go down from 1.1k on average to 150 flat number per hit. Now it will not only be on spells, but it will be on any form of direct damage, but it's still a really big nerf. And on top of that, they're reducing the shield size by 9%, because apparently having a 6k shield in PvP, in CP PvP might I add, was apparently too much for Zos. I understand that they're nerfing shields in order to move away from shield stacking, but what they don't seem to realize is that Sorcerer doesn't have anything else. For one, Twilight Matriarch is getting nuked. 2, it can be killed. 3, it requires double barring, which most orcs can't do just due to the sheer amount of skills that we actually have to slot. And apart from Twilight Matriarch, we only have Power Surge, which requires you to be offensive, but if you're on the defensive, you can't just hammer Breath of Life, or just Vigor and Roll Dodge, or, well, do anything else but shield stack. But either way, I mean, it's Zos, they know best. Thank God I have other characters to play next update. Speaking of other nerfs that affect magsorcs disproportionately, Flame Reach is losing its stun. They're transforming Flame Reach into a utility skill, as in they're increasing its dot, but they're removing its utility as a spammable. So there's that. So good luck to any Sorc that was stunning with Flame Reach, or any Mag Warden that was stunning with Flame Reach, or any Magic Necromancer, if you even exist, because, I mean, let's face it, Magic Necromancers are really, really bad at the moment. There's that. Speaking of other nerfs that affect Templars and Sorcs, they have nerfed the damage of Liquid Lightning by 37%, and they have nerfed the damage of Spear Shards by 37% after buffing it last update, so the only thing I have to say about this is make up your mind, Zos. They literally buffed those skills the previous update, but now they're just nerfing it by way more than what the amount they buffed it for. I don't get what's the point. Like, what's the point of just buffing one skill one update and then nerfing it, especially since, again, Spear Shards and Liquid Lightning, of all things, they aren't overpowered skills. I don't see what's the point of nerfing their damage, especially when the previous update you clearly made your intentions clear by buffing them in order to encourage people to use them or make them more useful. But I guess that's not the case anymore. Okay. I think that's about it for the nerfs that, or well, changes that really stuck out to me. Feel free to, I really encourage you to read the entirety of the patch notes, because there's like some werewolf changes, some Templar changes that are actually, I guess they're buffs. I'm not actually sure how the new Eclipse will be used, but I guess we'll just have to see. Ooh, they're nerfing Meteor as well, which again nobody asked for. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through, like there's just so many changes, but those are the most, can I say absurd? Yeah, absurd ones, I guess. I mean, like, why would they not let Healing Spring stack, or why would they allow only one orb at a time for PvE content? How is that, how is it beneficial in any way? And why are the nerfing abilities when the issue with PvE sets? If you look at the current PvE raiding scene, every single endgame guild has just necromancers as DDs, just stamina necromancers, because of the Colossus ulti, or like Atronach, or however you call it, that provides major vulnerability. The major vulnerability that has been introduced this update with the stamina necromancer ulti is the issue. It's why people, it contributes to the power creep more than actual just regular abilities do. Only instead of nerfing major vulnerability that the stamina necromancers have, they're just nerfing everything across the board, because this is what Zos does. I used to think Robo was the source of Zos's issues with balancing this game. I mean, there's like tons of Robo memes that still exist somewhere in some people's folders, I guess. But, I mean, this incompetence hasn't stopped since he got fired, so what is it? Was Eric Robel right all along? Was he just an innocent person that got caught up in this balancing nightmare? I thought like the changes would be better ever since he got fired, but that's simply not the case. And I'm not just talking about Sorcs here. Let's just take Major Expedition, for example, like the Major Expedition nerf across the board that they're keeping up this update with the nerf to rapid maneuvers. In Murkmire, well, prior to Murkmire, people were complaining about stamina builds being able to use speed potions and have just Major Expedition for 45 seconds with those speed and immovable parts. That has been raised by class reps, that has been just general agreed upon community feedback. So what did Zos do? They nerfed Major Expedition across the board. They implemented a new rule. Major Expedition can only last 4 seconds. Why? Nobody knows, but Zos thought it was logical just to do this. I mean, they also nerfed the speed pots, which were the issue with the mobility being overpowered, but on top of nerfing the speed pots, they literally nerfed Major Expedition across the board. Why did they nerf Boundless Armor? Why did they nerf Warden Wings? Why did they nerf any other Major Expedition skill that was used by Magicka classes, which had already trouble with mobility? No, again, nobody knows, but that's Zos for you. And those changes were made after they fired Eric Roble, so I'm not sure whom to blame now. I mean, we can always blame Gilliam for this, but it's just, it seems like it's a team effort in order to be as absurd and illogical as possible. Now I wanted to just take a minute to talk about faction lock, which I think is one of the most stupid changes they introduced with the Elsweyr update. Faction lock doesn't benefit anyone except for a highly visible minority of forum role players and people that care about Alliance campaign score, when what they don't get is that the score is determined by what faction night caps the map. And by definition, like, a night cap is done at night where most people don't play. So whatever you do in prime time, when you do play after a hard day of work or whatever, doesn't matter, because the faction that will win is the faction that holds the map most of the day, like from midnight till 4 p.m. And that's the night capping faction. Before faction lock was introduced, it was 80 for the past 3 years, at least on the main CP, a 30-day campaign, it was 80. Now it's EP. Nothing changed. Nothing changed except the ability of players to just relog in order to have nice fights. I'm personally faction locked on EP on the 30-day CP campaign, whose name I can't pronounce because it's like stupid dragon names or whatever, instead of on Old Vivek. I'm faction locked on EP on Old Vivek, and I can't just relog every single time EP zergs, which is all the time now. So I just don't get it. It just prevents players from having nice fights, and it limits their freedom, which again, it's just a really dumb change. And they didn't even implement it on the 7-day campaign, which was a major issue raised every single time on forums, like how on the 7-day campaign people just flip keeps in order to get M, then leave the campaign, then their buddy gets amp. You're not faction locked on the 7-day campaign. I'm on the 7-day campaign, and it's just people leaving the campaign once they get amp, or then like relogging on their like EP character. DC gets amp, then the same DC that crowned the amp, like by PV during empty keeps, relog on their EP alts, they decrown the amp, then they crown his friend. That's literally the 7-day campaign in a nutshell, so it didn't really fix the issue here, did it? Another thing I forgot to mention when talking about the patch note nerfs is that, well, they did buff streak, or at least like they reduced the cost increase you have when streaking again in the next 4 seconds from 50 to 33%, but the streak skill is bugged. You're getting rooted on every single uneven surface you come across, and you can't cast skills or do anything for 4 seconds. So you just usually die. I personally tried the streak morph for 2 days this patch because I thought it could be useful to my group and stun people, except it just never worked, and I got rooted everywhere. From resource towers to keep walls to even the little hills behind Robic Farm. Yeah, you get rooted there too. So any buff they do to streak is kind of useless given how broken the skill is. Ball of Lightning is fine though, it's really just streak, so and Zos is probably no doubt aware of this bug because it's been this way since Morrowind hit, on and off again, but they're not doing anything to fix it. Speaking of other things that Zos is aware of and yet doesn't do anything about it, is the permanent combat bug. With the Elsweyr update, you had this great change that so many people were grateful for, which meant that you could change skills while in combat. Well, not actively engaged in combat, not fighting, but if you were just stuck in combat, for example, or still like haven't left combat, but not actively fighting, you could slot rapid maneuvers, you could slot negate, you could just change your skills. And with the patch notes a week ago, they reverted that change, saying it was a bug, when it has been this way since the launch of the game until they decided to break it for some reason. It wouldn't be an issue if you actually reliably got out of combat as soon as you stopped fighting, but that's simply not the case. If you're in a group, you'll be stuck in combat for ages while the rest of your group members fight, like be it on the other side of the map or whatever. Even if you leave the group, sometimes you just get stuck in permanent combat. I've had to fucking run on foot from Sejanus to Robic last time because I was just stuck in combat, even though I wasn't grouped with anyone, just because of the amount of bugs this game has, and the fact that I couldn't even slot rapids because since last Monday you can't even change your skills in combat is just really annoying, and I don't get what does that change do except piss off most of the community. those are my main issues with Elsweyr, honestly. I don't like the fact that they reverted that you can't change skills in combat. It's a dumb change. Faction lock is equally dumb. The fact that the meta switched to full stamina necromancers and raids due to major vulnerability and they aren't doing anything to address it is dumb as well. Except, well, of course, nerfing skills across the board, but not nerfing major vulnerability, which is the issue, as I said before. Those are like the main things that, in terms of PvE and PvP, that are bad, I guess, for lack of a better term. Then, regarding Elsweyr itself, I thought I can still talk for another minute, I guess. I'm sorry for the length of this video. As I said, it's really not scripted, so I just tend to rant a lot. Anyways, regarding the Elsweyr zone itself, I like the zone. It's really pretty, okay? Like, it's probably one of the most beautiful zones in game, but it's really empty, and it's small. It's not worth paying, like, chapter money for, to be honest. I'm not saying the quests are bad, they aren't. I mean, I personally don't like the fact that they keep reusing the same characters just to pander to people, but instead of introducing new NPCs or whatever, that's just my personal opinion. The quests themselves aren't bad, but they're really, really short, and the sub-data is really, really small. And the zone itself, well, you might be able to go everywhere, unlike Somerset and Vardenfell, where you had, like, the mountains that just artificially expanded the size of the zone. There's only 39 quests in Elsweyr, I think, or 36 or 39, I don't remember the amount, but I did have a screenshot somewhere. Compare that with Rovka, where you had 47 quests and a full new arena to do, like the Maelstrom arena, and Rovka was a DLC, not a chapter. Again, the Elsweyr zone just feels really empty, and that's not helped by the fact that all of the houses in Rimmen are locked, so you can't even go inside because they couldn't be bothered to just furnish them. Same goes for Riverhold. Like, it's just a really, really empty zone, and there's nothing to do except hunt dragons there. And nothing wrong with hunting dragons, but it's gonna wear out. Like, as soon as people get their 30 daily quests, the daily dragon quests done, it's gonna stop, and there's just nothing to do. You might say Zos introduced a new class, the Necromancer class, but the Necromancer class is really, really useless unless you can't endgame PvE raiding on Stamina Necromancer. Magic Necromancer is probably the worst class in game right now, because the skills are just the damage, the tooltips of the skills are just really bad. Blast Bones is bugged. The resource regen is low. Or at least, like, if you cast Siphon, it restores 2k magic in 20 seconds. Come on, like, it's nothing. The corpse mechanic is clunky. Like, there's literally no reason to play Necromancer unless you're just a Stam Necro in a PvE raid and want to clear Sunspire. Oh, and one last thing before I finish this video. I fucking hate Chimera. She's just a Mary Sue straight from fanfiction, and that started with a character introduction on the ESO website before the prologue quest about how the speaker of the main talks about how she's just a special cookie and the best at everything and the best in combat and the most talented, and then how she can sneak past Abnathan because she's just better than him even though he's a battle mage with 150 years of experience. It's everything. She's just so perfect and comes out of nowhere. And then I'm sorry about the spoilers, but there'll be spoilers about the Elsweyr main quest line, and then it turns out that she's Queen of Enequina, because of course she is, even though there's zero foreshadowing and you don't even know who the ruling family of Enequina was, or who Euraxia deposed, or that they had a long lost daughter. And then Chimera just comes when you're fighting a dragon at the Battle of Riverhold, and she's just like, "This one is Queen of Enequina, listen to this one, comrades, this one is queen, and you love your queen, so fight for me and be joyful." And then everyone is just overjoyed and kills the dragon and wins, and it just really always felt empty. It's not a very good speech, and I don't get why she's just Queen of Enequina out of the blue. And then another thing about her, of course she has a magical moon pendant or whatever that opens the moon gate so that you can go and fight dragons on the moon, because of course she does. And in the prologue it was said that this pendant repelled Abnathan's scrying, so I don't really get what's the relation between, you know, repelling scrying and opening moon gates, but I guess there is one. I mean, I know it's just a magical MacGuffin like any other thing in ESO or just in the fantasy genre in general. It just, like, of course Chimera has it, because of course she does, because it's just a Mary Sue, and she just has to have this magical, wonderful trinkets and that can do so many different functions. Is it multifunctional trinket? Does it open moon gates and prevent scrying? Like, how does this shit work? And then of course, like for the Dragonhold trailer, of course she hisses down a dragon. I honestly was rooting for the dragon. Like, I thought it would snap her in half. I wished it would snap her in half. I really, really, really dislike Chimera. And now this video has gone on for a while, and I'm really sorry for this rant. I mean, I know lots of people love this NPC and love Elsweyr, and I don't dislike Elsweyr. It's a really nice zone. It just feels really empty. And again, I really loathe Chimera. And about all those faction lock changes and the upcoming patch notes, well, I guess that's about it.